Oh, what a game! What a game between Purdue and Penn State. I thought it would be a really tough challenge for Penn State. A credit to Sean Clifford, who, if a couple of more plays and series went the other way, I mean, Drew Allard is nipping at his heels, to get in the game. And pretty much, Sean Clifford, he executed down the stretch there for Penn State on that final drive as he hits Lee on a leak out play. And I mean, Penn State's offensive line does not look all that impressive. I know that they gave Singleton some carries tonight. He looked all right. The freshman, they have another freshman back that actually showed, a lot of elusiveness. He's a little bit of a smaller back. But it is the first game for this offensive line group and these running backs specifically. The defense, I mean, I really like Joey Porter. I like Joey Porter on the outside playing coverage. I think that he has good length, athletic ability, twitch, and can make plays while the ball is in the air. Now he could have intercepted, a couple of passes tonight from Aiden O'Connell. But Penn State overall, I mean, Purdue's a tough offense to go against. So, I mean, Penn State could have gotten a little bit more pressure, but at the same time, at Purdue, with the offense kind of sputtering out with Sean Clifford tonight, Purdue, it's a very tough game for Penn State. Now, Manny Diaz, he called some good man-to-man coverages at the end, and Purdue, I think, had an opportunity on 3rd and 5 to hit a play deep down the left side, and Penn State just made a great deflection late. Aiden O'Connell, threw the ball a little bit late, and then a masterful drive by Penn State after Sean Clifford went out there and after they punted the ball in the end zone. So Purdue made some mistakes tonight. The end of the half play with the tight end, pretty much catching a Hail Mary for Penn State. I mean, Purdue tonight, if they didn't allow that touchdown at the end of the game with the pick six, I mean, their offense was more crisp than Penn State, but they didn't execute in the red zone, and they couldn't run the ball, and they couldn't take up a lot of clock, and you got to give credit to Penn State's defense. Penn State's defense really bowed up in the fourth quarter. Then Sean Clifford handed Purdue a gift in that sense, but Purdue also made that play. So at home, Purdue was like a play away. If they complete that 3rd and 5 and get down in the field goal range up by 3, there's a high likelihood that they end up winning the game. So, overall, you look at Purdue's talent, and I think that Aiden O'Connell, without having David Bell and Karlaftis, I think that they get the most out of the talent that they do have on that roster. I also think that just O'Connell's a very good quarterback, and even tonight he throws a lot of incompletions, but it's still a one-dimensional offense. They need to get to running the ball a little bit more effectively, but Jeff Brom does the most of what he has, and Penn State still has, a bunch of talent there. But the problem is, quarterback play, offensive line, and also getting pressure on the passer. A lot of times they could not get pressure on Aiden O'Connell, but that's also because O'Connell's also smart. He knows how to get rid of the ball in a timely fashion. So I predicted a very competitive game. Purdue, was up 3 with a great chance to win, and Sean Clifford just went down there, and they had an excellent drive called by Mike Yurachek, a lot of easy screen plays, and Penn State was just able to capitalize at the end. It was like an NFL game. Whoever was going to have the ball and make a couple of plays late was going to win. It was a very entertaining game. It was the first game of both of these teams' seasons, but in college football, if you lose a game like that, you're really behind the 8 ball. But for Purdue, I mean, Purdue, they're trying to win the Big Ten West, and they still have, I believe, the ability to do that. They're going to go up and play a team like Minnesota, so they're going to have to stop the run, and they did a really nice job stopping the run. You look at Purdue when they play a team like Iowa, I think Purdue actually went and beat Iowa last year. I think that Purdue really has an opportunity to beat Iowa. I don't know if Wisconsin is going to play at home against Purdue. That can maybe be a tough matchup with the Badgers defense. That's like the one bad matchup, but Purdue could still be an 8-win team. Even with the loss tonight, if they would have won tonight, then they'd look really good to be an 8-4 team, 7-5. But O'Connell's just that good. I mean, you replace, David Bell, you replace some of his leading receivers, and he just doesn't miss a beat. But you look at Penn State's guys, and they have some good linebackers on defense. They certainly have the talent. I mean, Porter popped off the screen tonight as like a cornerback that can, really make plays for him. The wide receiver Smith, number 1, made an incredible play. And they have talented guys, especially Smith is a talent. The offensive line, though, and running game is still not really getting there. And tonight, Sean Clifford was really sloppy for the majority of the second half. He's played there 6 years. He's a Jekyll and Hyde quarterback. He's kind of an average Big Ten quarterback to tiny bit above average at times. His arm strength's all right, but sometimes very questionable decision-making. Pocket mobility's okay, but definitely not a guy that I see as, really, really solid quarterback. I see him as being okay, being a little bit above average and, good enough to win games against the middle teams, in the Big Ten. And, you look at Penn State in the East and you get Maryland, you get Rutgers. So you're going to get, I think Indiana might play in the East as well. So those are going to be wins for Penn State, but then when you play Michigan State and then Michigan, I mean, it really depends what Michigan can put out on offense, but it's going to be tough for a guy like Clifford, to win on the road. If Penn State can run the ball, their back line is pretty talented, and maybe Manny Diaz can continue to send some blitzes. I think their defense is all right, but do they really have that star linebacker or that star defensive lineman that can really just wreck games at Penn State? And tonight we did not see that with Aiden O'Connell. So you look at Purdue, who's like a pretty good Big Ten team, and Penn State's supposed to have really special talent. You're paying James Franklin $10 million, and, Penn State got the W tonight. But again, they look really shaky, and Clifford looks really shaky as well. And that game in Auburn, I mean, that's going to be played with teams that really have two shaky offenses, teams that, I guess Tank Bigsby, maybe they can run the football with Finley. But I think that Auburn, playing in front of that crowd is going to have the upper hand in that game. I think Auburn's going to be favored to beat Penn State. This could be a 7-win season for Penn State. You look at the teams on their schedule, Ohio State, Michigan's going to be very tough. There's probably another toss-up game that Penn State has along the way from the Big Ten West. But it's looking like an 8-4 style season. I mean, Michigan State's going to be really, really good as well. I think Michigan State's a better team. So, I mean, it's going to be, the Big Ten. I mean, you get a lot of one-possession ball games, and it just was a really fun watch. I mean, Penn State does have talented players in spots. Purdue with Aiden O'Connell. I mean, Purdue's defensive line impressed today. Their secondary was fine. Ron English is doing a good job with the pieces that they have. Penn State has more talent on defense, but Aiden O'Connell is a much better quarterback than Sean Clifford, and he kept them in the game almost single-handedly, and then Clifford really made a mistake. So both of these teams, especially with Purdue being at home, Purdue really had, of course, their opportunities. They really messed up play at the end of the half. Give credit to the Penn State tight end for breaking a tackle and making a play. But Purdue was right there. This is a game that Purdue gave away. They were winning late, couldn't get that final stop, couldn't make that final throw, and Penn State took the game in a very clutch way. So James Franklin gets out of here. And this is a huge win, and it keeps the momentum going because, again, you didn't play great tonight on either side of the ball. But again, it's game one. You go into Ohio, you win there, and then you take your shot at Auburn. This is a game that Scott Frost, this is a game that you watch West Virginia tonight, the teams that are firing their coaches, Justin Fuente at Virginia Tech, this is a game that those teams just lose and just don't have that mental willpower late in the game to figure it out and survive on the road in a game that's survivable. And this is, Nebraska can't do what Penn State just did tonight. So what a drive by Clifford. He did make big plays, at some points tonight during the game. I mean, 4 touchdowns, rushing for a touchdown. And that drive, I mean, when you win a game like that, I mean, that's what it's all about as a quarterback, is those clutch moments. And, you know, he delivered. He came through. Now he's an older guy. He's a senior. And Aller's going to be right there. And then if he's, you know, at Auburn, say they lose one game. The minute they lose 2 or 3 games, I think you're really going to see a push for Drew Aller, especially if Clifford makes these head-scratching decisions and is really inaccurate with the football like he can sometimes be. But what a game to start college football. I mean, so many ebbs and flows of momentum, a great crowd at Purdue, and really an awesome football game all around tonight. But Penn State gets a win. And we have to really see how Penn State, if they can progress this season. It's kind of a setup year of sorts. I mean, next year they're going to have Aller. If they can get this defense humming, get these receivers on point, I mean, this is a team that really, you know, looking this year, try to go get 9 wins in the conference, and then next year you really take your shot with a quarterback that's then going to be like a sophomore with game experience. That's going to be really exciting for Penn State football.